But something a computer is really good at doing and we aren't so good at is doing something over and over again. This is the difference between making redstone contraptions to cook your food for you rather than going and getting food yourself. So we can do this through a while loop. So this structure lets you run a block of code over and over again until we say it can stop. So we need a while keyword. This is just the word while. Yep. And we need a condition, which is while this is true. So when this is checked and it's no longer, say if I isn't less than 10 anymore, then the block of code in between the two curly brackets will not run. Yep. So the last thing you need is the code in the curly brackets. So while, condition, and code in the curly brackets. And in my example here, I have what we call an iterator or a counter. I'm calling it I, and I'm increasing it by 1 at every iteration of the while loop. So we're gonna go through step by step on how this might work. So it starts off with I being 0. 0 is less than 10, so it's going to console log I, which just prints 0. And then it's going to increase by 1, and 1 still less than 10, it'll print 1 and it'll increase again. I will then be 2, print 2, increase to 3, print 3, increase to 4, and so on. So we need to go a bit slower when we get to 8. And then plus 1 is 9. So 9 is still less than 10, so we're going to print 9. But at the end of the 9 block, we add 1 and it then equals 10. 10 is no longer less than 10. 10 is equal to 10. So therefore the code will stop there and it will continue running from below the block of code inside the while loop. So in total we printed out 10 values because remember arrays start at 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 is 10 values. So this code is an easy way to just print something 10 times, or just do anything 10 times. And we can do all sorts of conditions inside the while loop. It's not only just, your counter is less than, equal to, or greater than another number. It can be any sort of comparison operator that we covered beforehand that you might use in an if statement. It's just anything that can return true or false. Yep. And remember, you need to make sure that the condition for the while loop is actually only checked once you get to the bottom. So if I put I++ above the console log, then not only would the console logging of the numbers be greater than 1 of everything we had before, but it would actually not terminate early, it would only check at the end, so it would actually print out 11. So now we have a loop with arrays. Since arrays can hold thousands of values, so a lot of them, it's hard to know exactly what index something is at. Or more importantly, we can't do it automatically sometimes. So we can do this with loops. We can just loop until we get to something. Maybe we can just do an operation with every member of the array, things like that. So in my example, I have an array called good numbers only, and we're going to set a counter, I equals 0, and we're also going to have a variable that stores the length of the array. So in good numbers only's case, we have 5. So while I is less than number length, which is 5, so while I is less than 5, and if I starts at 0, you know that that's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 values that we go through. And inside the code block, we're going to subtract 3 from every member. And then we're going to print out the member after and then increment 1 to go back to the beginning and check if I is less than the number length again. So in our first iteration, so when I equals 0, we are going to subtract 3 from 7, giving 4. Then we'll go back, I equals 1 now, we're in index 1, we're going to subtract 3 from 2, 3 from 3, we're going to get 0, then 3, 1, and then finally 10 minus 3 is 7. Yeah, and when we increment again, we're 5 now, and 5 is not less than number length, so we're going to stop the loop, and yeah, we pretty much looped through the whole array. We found its length, made our counter only stop when it's the same number, when it's at the same index as the number length, and then we stop. And we need to make sure that we never try to access out of bounds of the array. So if we accessed a negative number, maybe -1, or if we went to an index greater than the length -1. So now we're going to show the use of while loops in code, and for our first while loop, we'll print all the numbers in this array, and for our second one, we'll take numbers out from the end until we find the number 5. So we need the while keyword and our condition. So our condition is when we reach while we're still inside the limits of the array. So we can implement this by saying that we'll stop when we reach past the end of the array. So it only happens when I is less than the limits of the array. For example, if there's 10 elements in here, we only do it while I is 0 to 9, because 10 would be past the end. Since arrays start from 0, even though there's 10 items, the last one is 9. So it stops when I equals 10. And we increment at every iteration of the loop so that it goes up and up and up and up until it reaches past. Now we're going to use console.log to print out the number at the value of I. So we're going to hit play. As you can see, we've printed out everything all the way to 10. And for our second one, we'll take things out from the back of the array until we find 5. So I've made a little variable here called 5found, and I've set it to false. So this variable is false when we haven't found 5 and true when we have. So we can say that the code continues while 5found is false. So it hasn't been found. We can also write 5 is not found, is not, as a condition. And inside, we can pop values from the array. So using pop on the array simply takes out the last element in the array and returns it as a value. So we've saved it into the variable popped, and we're going to say if popped is equal to 5, then 5found is true, and we can print something like 5 has been found. So when we hit, and we're also going to print out the array after we've found 5, or after we've ran this code. We're going to print out my numbers. Hitting play on this, 5 has been found, and the only array that's printed in my numbers is 1, 9, and 2, 23,333, because we removed as we went until we found 5. 5 found is now true, which means that this is now false, because this only occurs when 5 is not found. So the while code only continues when 5 found is false, set it to true, which means it doesn't continue and it can't pop the first 3 numbers.